Dr. Paul Pearsall writes about how he and his wife were attending a meeting in Rome, Italy. Their first stop was a tour of the Vatican City. Michelangelo's work in the Sistine Chapel had just been renovated. Dr. Pearsall and his wife waited for hours in line just to glimpse up at that remarkable painting on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. From a distance, as they waited in line, the paintings didn't look all that impressive. People chatted and joked while they waited in line. Oh, maybe I can get a paint-by-numbers kit for my ceiling at home and do the same thing there. But when they drew closer, however, they were overwhelmed. The paintings seemed to just engulf them. Everybody was quiet. Necks were strained as people didn't want to look away anywhere else but to see that gorgeous depiction that Michelangelo had put together. Now they were seeing the paintings as Michelangelo intended them to be seen. The impact was unforgettable. Then Dr. Pearsall noted a fly crawling across one of the paintings. And he thought, what a shame, that fly is right up there where I'd love to be. He's right on top of it, but he just can't see it. And then he remembered where he had read the words of philosopher William Irwin Thompson, who said, "We are like flies crawling across the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. We cannot see the angels and God lying underneath the threshold of our perceptions." Flies on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. As we look at our gospel lesson for today, we could divide it up into what we might call a series of magnificent paintings, each one a little bit different image from that mountaintop experience. In the first image, what we see is Jesus and his inner circle of disciples, Peter, James, and John. Jesus is praying. The disciples are sleeping. In the second frame that we might look at as the Gospels describe it, we see the result of Jesus' prayer. His appearance begins to change in dramatic fashion. His clothes are as bright as light. And two men, Moses and Elijah no less, appear with him. Peter and his companions, once asleep, are now fully awake. And I wonder just which one of them woke up first. And how would that be if it was one of you, if there's three asleep, one of you wakes up, you'd say, "Wake up, look at this, look at what's going on here." They'd never seen anything like it, and I'm sure they were excited. Later it's recorded that Peter said to Jesus, "Lord, it's good for us to be here. Let's stay here. We'll make a shelter, one for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah." And Luke tells us in his gospel that poor Peter just didn't have a good grasp of what was going on. Then in the third frame, we would see in the painting a cloud surrounding them to the point where they couldn't hardly see each other. And a voice comes from the cloud saying, "This is my Son, whom I have chosen. Listen to him." In the final painting, the voice is now silent, the cloud is gone, and so are Moses and Elijah. Jesus is there, and his three disciples are there with him. They're just them, are on the mountaintop. But there's a strange and mysterious look on the face of the disciples. Luke tells us that they kept this to themselves, and they told no one at that time what they had seen. The question for us today is, how will we deal with these four scenes, these memorable paintings, you might say, that Luke portrays for us on the Mount of Transfiguration? Will we simply scan through them briefly and marvel perhaps for a moment at the hand of the artist and then move on to other notable paintings around us with no thought of what the author's trying to say? Or worse yet, would we be like flies on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel who see such works of art as only a momentary resting place, but don't see anything more than that? Or shall we look for some deeper meaning, some relevant truth about our lives and about our destinies? The fact of the matter is, much of what Christianity is about is contained in these four scenes that Luke portrays for us. They speak about the very heart of what we believe in, about life, about God, about our reason for being. Let me sum up what I think these paintings, these pictures that Luke paints for us, say to us. First of all, they say that there's a lot more to reality than simply what we can hear, see, touch, taste, or smell. The experience on the Mount of Transfiguration was no ordinary mountaintop experience. It was not simply a matter of Peter, James, and John being moved by the beauty of creation, as sometimes we might be, as good as those experiences are. No, it was much more than that. The world is a beautiful world, and it does tell us a lot about our Creator. It's so intricate, it's so wonderfully made. Scientists tell us that the slant of the earth, as it rotates, tilted at an angle of 23.5 degrees, is what produces our seasons. If the earth had not been tilted exactly like it is, vapors from the oceans would move both north and south, piling up continents of ice. If the moon were only 50,000 miles away instead of 200,000 miles away, the tides of the oceans would be so strong that every place on the earth would be covered with water twice a day. If the crust of the earth was only a few feet thicker than it is, there would be no oxygen and, of course, no life on the planet. And so the story goes on and on and on about the intricacies, about the incredible design of this world that God has been a part of. It's a magnificent thing. It overwhelms our senses to contemplate the glory of creation, and we've all seen it at times. Some of us out in the woods or out on the lake or out in the rivers, as the sportsmen will provide stuff here a little while later. There you just catch a brief glimpse, don't you, of how awesome our Creator is? But the Mount of Transfiguration experience says to us that the sum total of everything beautiful, everything wonderful we've ever experienced through our five senses, sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell, when we add up every good feeling we've ever had about family, friends, health, hope, when we include everything this world has to offer for happiness, joy, and peace, there still is more. There is a reality that our scientific instruments cannot measure, that our best philosophical minds cannot fathom, that our most sophisticated rockets cannot reach. It's the realm of the spiritual. It's the reality of a living God. There's a lot more going on than most people realize. Even many of us who have been exposed to what God teaches, still, do you realize how real these things are? I wonder how many really know. I've been doing a little study and some communication with some other pastors about angels, demons, God's Spirit. This is as real as it gets, but you've maybe never seen it yourself. I've had some very interesting conversations with a retired Lutheran pastor in Indiana this past week, a couple weeks, telling me about experiences he's had with demons and about the reality of such things. I've seen these things. I've also seen angels, and I know of the reality of God's Spirit. Maybe you have not had a particular experience where you could put your finger on it and say, there it is, but I'm telling you it's real. And if you haven't seen it, the danger is that we drift off into some kind of a life that's much less than God would have us be aware of. There's much more going on than simply what is visible to our eyes or what we can smell on a given day or something like that. You need to realize there's a bigger picture out there.